Hello, sixth grade. Let's talk about conclusion. So if you're seeing this video, it means that Mr. Kotang or Ms. Mac, one of us is not here. So let's quickly go over conclusion. I'm sorry if it's so echoey that it's distracting you, but you will be okay. All right, first, pause this video and record these notes in your notebook. If you don't have these notes, there will be no other time to take down these notes, okay? So please pause this video right now and take down these notes, okay? All right, hopefully you paused the video and you have all of these notes in your notebook. Let's go over conclusion now. All right, full screen. And let's zoom in and tackle these topics one at a time. Okay, there we go. All right, a conclusion is the end of a process like doing an experiment or writing an essay. Whenever you're doing anything really, you are going to have a conclusion because a conclusion is just the end. When you write an essay, you're going to write a conclusion paragraph. When you write a research paper, you will write a conclusion paragraph. In science, when you do an experiment, the conclusion is at the end. It might not be one paragraph, but it might be several paragraphs. So it's just the end of the process. And the purpose of the conclusion is to summarize the entire experiment and to provide guidance to other scientists. So at the end of your conclusion, you are going to summarize your whole experiment. All right? If someone wanted to get like the overview of the experiment, okay, the TLDR, if people still know what that means, of your experiment, they are going to skip to your conclusion and read through your conclusion to see if they want to read the whole thing. All right? So when you're writing a conclusion, keep that in mind, that the purpose of the conclusion is to summarize and provide guidance. Oh, provide guidance just means like, in the future, this is what this experiment means for the world. So if I do an experiment where I'm running 10 miles every day, part of the conclusion might be, please don't do this, you know? All right, let's move on to the conclusion parts, the parts to a conclusion. Number 1 is restate the testable question. Number 2 is hypothesis evaluation or analysis. Number 3 is explanation using data. Number 4 is limitations or possible errors. Number 5 is possible next experiments. And number 6 is a reflection. All right, so let's go over what each of these means. But first, we have a new word. Well, it might not be new to some of you, but accurate means correct or without errors. Accurate is correct. So if my answers on the math test are accurate, that means that I am going to get a 100%. They are correct. Now, why do I have this here? Let's exit full screen for a second. Accurate means correct or without errors. Inaccurate, I just add this little prefix, is the opposite. It means incorrect or with errors. All right, so inaccurate, I just added that IN prefix, means incorrect. Not accurate, not correct. Is it going to reboot me? Yes, it is. All right, let's zoom in again. So when we're talking about our experiment, we are going to mention the accuracy, how accurate our experiment was. All right, let's revisit this parts to a conclusion. There are 6 parts to a conclusion. You might have 6 paragraphs for your conclusion. I have an example for you all. So for example, the first part of the conclusion is to restate the testable question. So for example, in the beginning of my experiment, my testable question was, how does the amount of Red Bull I drink affect my math test scores? We restate the testable question in order to remind the reader or whoever's looking at our experiment we're reminding them what the purpose of our whole experiment was. Why did we even do this in the first place? Number 2, the second part of your conclusion is going to be hypothesis evaluation. That looks like my hypothesis stated that if I drink more Red Bull before taking a math test, then my test score will be higher. This hypothesis was incorrect. So that is evaluating your hypothesis. It was incorrect. Here's what it was, and it was incorrect. We're just saying correct or incorrect. That's all that means, really. Okay, the third part to our conclusion is to use our data to make our argument, all right? So this hypothesis was incorrect because I drank 1 Red Bull for our ratios test and I got an 81% on my test. After that, I drank 2 Red Bulls for a fractions test and I got a 75%. Finally, I drank 3 Red Bulls for our percentages test and I got a 35% because I threw up halfway through the test. All right, so that is our data. We're like supporting this statement. We're supporting this hypothesis was incorrect with data. So that's our data section. Our next section is going to be called limitations. Limitations are difficult. Once you get it, you'll have it, but they are a little difficult to learn at first, okay? Limitations are just possible errors. So what could have gone wrong in your experiment to make your data inaccurate? We want our data to be accurate. We want our data to be correct. But during all experiments, every single experiment, there are limitations that are making our data a little bit incorrect. So, for example, a limitations paragraph might look like, some limitations to my experiment are as follows. First, the subjects of each test were different. I know more about ratios than anything else, so it might not have been the Red Bull that made my other test scores lower. Secondly, the tests were on different days and I had different levels of stress on different days. For this experiment to be more accurate, I would have to find a way to make everything the same except for the number of Red Bulls. Then we are going to move on to possible next experiments. These are related experiments to deepen our knowledge about what we just did. We want to know more, all right? If scientists send a rocket to Mars, the next possible experiment might be trying to send a rocket to, I don't know, Mercury or a different planet or into the sun, I don't know. All right, so we are exploring related topics. So for example, my possible next experiments could be, what would happen to our test scores if we drink more water beforehand? And how does the amount of studying affect our test scores? Both of these are related to school, and one of them is even related to like what you drink before taking a test. Then we have our reflection. Upon reflection, I would not recommend this experiment to anyone. I got sick and threw up. It was not fun. This experiment also suggests that Red Bull does not help your test scores, so I will stick to water before my other tests. This is like going over their thoughts, this scientist's thoughts on the experiment, what they are going to do next, and what you should do after reading this experiment. All right, so those are all of the parts to a conclusion. You should have all of the notes in your notebook. I think the next thing you have to do is, I don't know, check with your checklist, all right? I have posted everything on Google Classroom, and hopefully you all are fairly comfortable with conclusion after this. All right. I think that's it. Have a great day.